There we go. Now,
Okay.
there we go.
Okay, let's try this and see if it works. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit in Lightroom to begin with, and then from there we'll go into Lightroom itself. I'm sorry, I'll go a little bit in PowerPoint, begin with into Lightroom itself. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So beyond the basics, disclaimers. There are many ways to accomplish a task in Lightroom in Photoshop. I'm not going to tell you the way to do it. I'm going to give you some suggestions. If they're helpful, that's fantastic, great. If not, well, why MMV? Your mileage may vary. So pick what works for you. Again, find what your own truth in this whole thing. There's no absolute way. There's just more ways. Two people waiting in the view center. Should I admit them?
Oh, yes. Admit them, please.
Okay, one is Nicole from Stephen and Nicole. So let's see, here we go. When I do serious work, when I'm trying to do competition, trying to do really good prints, I'll use both Lightroom and Photoshop. Today we're talking about Lightroom only, so there's some things in my workflow I will not demonstrate, but we can do a lot of great stuff in Lightroom, and I'm doing more and more in Lightroom as time goes along. So Lightroom has gone from basically the version 1.0, which I got, I don't know how many years ago, is a digital asset management system and the catalog your images. And then you would only import them to Photoshop, to something that allows you to do a lot of very compelling work. And it's improved over the years, and I suspect it will continue to improve with time. There are a lot of resources to learn about Lightroom. A couple of my favorites are Kelby One. Kelby One is some phenomenal videos. It is not cheap. I have a grandfather contract, so I think I'm in for 100. I think the newer ones are around 150 with occasional sales. Steve Perry made an 18-hour video on the library module only. That's one part of the Lightroom where you store your photos. 18 hours, that's an incredible amount of depth there. Unfortunately, he's not going to do anything else beyond this, which is too bad, but it was a tremendous deep dive into that area of Lightroom. First, I want to talk about some of the religious stuff, get out of the way, because there's always questions about this. Do you do this or that? So my computer, I've been a Mac user for nearly 10 years now. Maybe it's over 10. It doesn't matter, but in case there's a question about it, I'm on a Mac. My smartphone is an iPhone. In camera systems, well, I've been using Canon, Nikon, and to a very limited extent Sony. I use both a DSLR and an EVO camera, EVO being electronic viewfinder, interchangeable lens. I tend not to use the term mirrorless because my iPhone is a mirrorless camera, so are point and shoot digital cameras. So this is a way of saying it's really a DSLR equivalent mirrorless camera. If someone has a better name for it, I'd love to hear it. But electronic viewfinder interchangeable lens works very well for describing it. Currently, I'm shooting both the Nikon full frame, a D850, and they're a mirrorless equivalent of Z7.
How about Milk, mirrorless interchangeable lens camera?
Well, fine, whatever. I don't. Evil does not bother me, but it does bother some people. So anyhow, choice of hardware, it's whatever works for you. What I've picked over the years has worked for me. If something doesn't work, I try it, I'll change it out. I've spent some time trying to learn a tablet. I will spend more time on a tablet, but so far the Wacom is more of a placemat on my desk than a useful tool. If there's something different that works for you, great. Again, there's no right way to do this. It is a creative exercise and find what works for you the best. And someone once told me photography is all about solving problems. You need to find the tools that solve it for you. As photographers, we are problem solvers. We need to capture something, whether it's to stop action in mid-flight, mid-step, mid-jump for ballerina, or it's to create a nice, pleasant blur. And how do we do that? There are all these problems we need to solve. We have lots of tools. Find the right ones to do what you want. Again, with art, there's no right answer. We've all seen the masters. anywhere from 1600s through Jackson Pollock, even more modern change. And they're all beautiful art. They're all different. They all use some different tools to create their own expressions. So I want to start with something we all think we know well, and that's how you load your images into Lightroom. Traditionally, you insert the card into the card reader, allow Lightroom to load the data. Well, I found this method to occasionally cause errors. Other people have done so too. I've occasionally gotten duplicate files, occasionally lost files doing this in the loading. It's not frequent, but it has happened. I've documented it, as other people have documented it too. So I found, with advice of some other excellent pros, some very good methods that will do this. And if you want to shoot from multiple cameras and you want to put the pictures together in a time sequence order and rename them based on the capture time as you're beginning to load them, and you want to do the rename in the import section, this will not work. You need to really do something different to do that process. So I found that if I put a card in, it is slow. Sometimes I could spend half an hour to load a 128 gig card. It just takes a long time to do that, even with a fast disk and a bad card reader. The Lightroom does take a lot of time to process. So a better method I found is basically to download all your cards into a directory using a secure popping program. On the Mac, I use Carbon Copy Cloner. Other people have suggested, particularly Tim Gray, using a program called GoodSync. I believe that runs both on the Mac and PC. But basically, you copy the card to a directory on your disk. Most people's disk today, at least the main disk, is solid state. The cards are obviously solid state. So this is a fairly fast method to download. So this goes pretty quickly, and you can do multiple cards into your download directory. I have a folder in my desktop called Downloaded Cards. That's where I put them all, and when I'm ready, I then import them into Lightroom. Again, the copying from a card to the solid state drive is very quick. A 60 gigs takes me a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes to copy. Ingesting this amount into Lightroom can take half an hour if I do it from the card. So it's much, much faster. I could copy everything to my hard drive and then ingest it later on while I go have dinner, go clean my equipment, take a nap, whatever. And with multiple cards, you'd have to wait and wait and wait for this to happen. This method, the waiting is not while I'm doing anything. It's sort of parallel to something else I want to do, like a nap on a big trip.
A rich question. So after you import them into Lightroom, do you then delete that folder?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I don't delete the folder. Actually, I move them. I don't copy them. So
you move them.
No longer in the folder.
Got it.
Okay. I'll show you this in a minute. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go through this in a lot of detail. This is the subscription what I'm doing. So I move next when I'm in Lightroom, I move all the images into Lightroom. Okay. After I've copied them to download directory, I move to Lightroom. And there's a bunch of settings here. Let's just go through that and look at this. Okay. And let me fire up Lightroom here. I think this should work because I think you're seeing are you seeing this? You seeing Lightroom?
Yes.
Okay, fine. I'm sharing my whole screen here, not a program. So what I do for import here, I'll go to the import module. You see how this works here. Okay. It's showing my phone here. First thing I do is pick the source I want to import from. This from right here, the little up and down arrow, if I hit that, it shows a lot of places I can work. I'm not sure many people have known about these things, but I come down here, and this is on my desktop. It's downloaded cards. I have some images there that I shot last weekend. I left them there so you can see them. So I picked this where I want. Otherwise, I can navigate through these menus to find what there are. Okay. So in the top up here, I can copy as a DNG. I never use DNG. That's a personal preference. I know some people like to have the Adobe standard file. I just keep it in a native raw file. In this case, it is a Nikon file, but it could be a Sony or a Canon file, Panasonic or whatever you have. I don't copy it. I move it. because when I'm done, I want it to clean out the directory for me. So there's no files left there. And I don't add it because I don't want it in that place. Now, one thing to be aware of is if I'm working with focus stacking. If you're focus stacking, at least on the Nikon system, it puts all the images from one focus stack into a separate directory. So you know what the first image is and the last image is. They're together, so you can quickly access them. I wish that you would do this for things like HDR images too, but it doesn't.
One suggestion from Justin Resnick on lynda.com, he shoots his hand. He takes a shot of his hand in between stacks. So he knows, here's the end of the stack. Here's the next end of the stack. You know, that's
you can do that. I've seen people do that. I found that a pain. It's absolutely no reason why the camera should not have that readily identified and Lightroom automatically handle it.
There's another thing that you can select in the views, that in your grid view, you can see the exposure bias. So
yeah, I have that. I'm getting to that.
Okay, that's that.
You're ahead of me.
Yep, that's another way you can see an HDR stack.
Yeah, but so anyhow, with this focus stack, it'll put them into directory, and then you have to handle it slightly differently. You have to actually move that directory in place. Otherwise, it'll just compress them into one place, into one folder. But going here, I select move, then come over to the left side and say, where do I want to put it? I can go to Photo Master and pick a directory I already have here. Since Howard and I are teaching a class at Oli, I have a folder for Oli right here for the autumn 2020. And I just go through this list here and say, what do I want to do? A lot of this is pretty basic. I use standard. I don't do smart previews. I think it takes a little too much space up. I don't worry about importing duplicates because I don't let that happen by this process. I don't make a second copy because I want to verify it before I make another copy. If I want to rename, I have that checked. I go to my custom settings. I say edit, and I can rename it any way I want. You can see here, let's see if I can get this to magnify. Here's the box. Okay, I have the settings, so I have year, month and date, underscore, CBG, Chicago Botanic Garden, and then I have, come on, there we go. And then I have the file suffix and number, so I can put that at the end of it. So you can see the date was 2020, 10/30, CBG, and then the suffix number from the file. It tells me what's there. I can say this is good, so I'll say okay. Let me close this box down again. Let me put it back on here, working my way through here. Or I can pick a different template to use, rename it from. You have to decide how you want to rename it. I think early on you should have a renaming system that you like and stick to it. I also have some developments here. I choose, when I'm developing it, to develop defaults. Here we go. Let me turn this off again. It's not showing very well. And by the way, this is Lightroom 10, so I'm running the newest stuff. The only problem I've had with it was interfering with my HP LaserJet printer, but that was it. So I come over here and I have, let's see, defaults, camera settings. That's not it. Trying to find the settings I had here.
Do you have it in user presets?
No, I had turning chromatic aberration and there it is, under optics. So I turn on lens correction and chromatic aberration. It's a profile for every lens that most lenses Adobe has a profile for, and that basically corrects for distortions in the lens, whether it's vignetting or light fall off or whatever. They've captured all this stuff, and they have a profile, a correction they apply to the image, so the image looks flat. I organize it by date, so you can put it into one folder. The file name, the subdirectory, my fall color there. Oh, I skipped this one here, metadata. When I'm creating metadata, I go to edit presets, and this is where I put my copyright information here. So I come here and I say, I come over here and say copyright, my name, the status I'll pick is copyrighted, rights uses all rights reserved unless otherwise specified. Okay, I don't have a website, so I don't have a URL. And you go on and do the rest of this here if you want to. Put your name, your address, so someone can find you when they want to. If they see your image, they want to contact you to use it or talk to you about it. It's there in the metadata. Without this, they have no idea who the work belongs to. And under U.S. patent law, copyright law, they can't identify it. It's considered orphaned. So you lose your rights to it. So you should try to protect your work, even if you only get a few cents or a few dollars on it. At least you get the credit for it too. So you go and fill all this stuff out here. I'll save it as a new preset, and I'll say, I'll just call it rich. I'll leave it there, and I'll put metadata here. I have a bunch of different settings there. I'll have to clean those up later. And then this is where it's going to be stored right here in this folder down here. Let me close this. And here is OLI, again, Northwestern's Ocean Learning Institute, the autumn 2020 in fall color, and then by the date. So that's where it will be put. And I'll then hit import. I already have it there, so I'm not going to import it. But if I had not loaded it, I would import it at this point. Okay, this is how I import it. So the process is basically to, let me get out of here, cancel this. The first thing I do is copy everything to a downloaded folder, then move from the downloaded folder into Lightroom, import by the process I just showed you. Once I go through and I find everything good, I verify that all the files are good, I back them up, I then reformat my cards so I can use them again. I used to use the cards as a final backup, but that meant I had to reload from repeatedly from the same card. I found I was getting all sorts of duplicates of the images, and this was not worth the headaches cleaning that up. So any questions on this?
That's good so far.
Okay, fine. Okay, we're now basically in Lightroom here. What I've done here is I've gone to library and I have show photos in the subfolders turned off. If I turn it on, you will see that in my 00 seminar folder, there are 6,039 pictures. But if I turn it back off, there are only 8 pictures in this folder itself. It takes a moment to come up and down here, okay? So you see the folder either by subfolder or everything in that folder below it. I have right now in view, and I go to view options here, I'm in grid view, basically, you know, just a grid here. I've expanded cells. If I want to do compact cells, you can see it makes them smaller. You can see a few more pictures on your screen. Expanded cells. And at this point, I can put 4 things above the picture here. I have the file name. I then have an exposure bias, which you can see on some of these images. If it's not heavily processed, it's a single image. They're all here. If I go, in fact, to my HDR images, now we see exposure bias 0 right here. Let me put this on. 0 right there. Come over to the next one. -2. Next one. +2. So you can see how the pictures were shot. Basically, how you change the exposure bias when shooting the pictures. That's really helpful for figuring out which images are in an HDR.
And do you use auto stacking to stack those, or
auto stacking is a great idea that's terribly implemented. Auto stacking, you specify a time between images. It's not the time between when the image is finished, and that's when it starts. It's a time between the start of one and the start of the next. So in this case, if you look here, this is a 2-second exposure. This is a 5-second exposure. Well, if I said I'm going to shoot my pictures really quickly within a second, it wouldn't pick up this picture and the next picture.
Right. It's only good if you're doing a burst. If you're doing
if your burst and the exposure is less than a second or something like that.
Right.
It doesn't work if you're doing a burst where the exposure is long.
Right. Right.
It's a great idea, but they implemented it very poorly.
Yeah, then I do what you do. I look at the exposure bias and I do a manual stack, Command Shift, Command G.
Yeah, I'll get into that.
Yep.
Okay, so going back here to the beginning of this thing, okay, so we have these with the views here going back to, let me shut this off again. It's hard to work my way through here. So we go back to view options. Again, I can put the ISO here. I have the crop dimensions. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can put there. You can put an index number if you want to see this is image 1, 2, 3 as you sort them. Your file. I'm not sure what the difference between a file name and the base file name is. Copy name. If you want to see where it's stored, you can see that. You could have your ratings in there. You have your capture time. Whoops. Okay, Jim Frazier wants to come in, so let me let him in. I hope that'll do. So we have capture times, crop dimension, which oftentimes I'll use to figure out, how big is this picture if I cropped it down or not. It goes on and on. F-stop exposure. Sometimes I want to know what my exposure is if I'm looking at something, especially if it's image and I'm doing an HDR. I want to make sure that I change the exposure correctly. Camera, model exterior, etc. there. So those are some of the things you could do here. You could, if you need to, and let me come over to this HDR image again. If I want to tag them, I have a little spray can here. And I hit the spray can. And I want to then hit this, and I want to flag this. I want to, let's say, have a label. I want my label to be red. So here I am. And I take the spray can now. All these images are now red. A real quick way of identifying it. Maybe there's a couple other things I want to make these red. Maybe I'll come back here to the spray can and I'll say, let's make these purple. So I'll make these 3 purple. I'm just holding the shift key down and going right across. Maybe I'll make these 4 here yellow. So I hit yellow right here. Okay. And again, let me just clear this up. Whoops, turn the spray can off. That should be doing it. There we go. I thought. Turn this off here. And let me, come on. Come over here, I'll hit shift and command, or shift A, or shift and control keys, and I'll just make them all red and then turn them off again. So there should be nothing here. Okay, so again, what we do is I hit the spray can. I say, what do I want to spray on the images? I could spray the label. I could spray a flag. So the flag could be flagged is like, this is a great image. Unflagged meaning it's yet to be assigned or rejected. I had like hitting an X on it. So I come over here and I say, I want to give a rating. I want to do some setting. I could rotate them. I could move them to a collection. It's just a way of quickly identifying images so you know what you want to do, especially when you're working your way through. I want to do this image, and that image. It's kind of hard to do those going through. The spray can is a very quick way of assigning an attribute to an image quickly. Another thing's nice to do. I mean, we have our metadata here, but you just want to make sure that all this metadata is set correctly here. You go through it if you want to find out anything about it. You can go through here and look at this and decide, you know, is this correct? Do you want to change anything in this metadata here? A metadata will follow the file if you import, export it. I often do keywording. Let's see. I have a large number of keywords here I've used. Since I do a lot of nature photography, I have a whole bunch of birds here. I also have mammals in this list here. So I have a whole bunch of places where I've shot them. So it's just a quick way of finding things. So if I want to say, let me find all the elephants I've ever shot, I come over to here and I can find this now. Actually, let's type it over here. I'll just type elephant here. That should identify the keyword of elephants for me. Oh, don't see it here. Okay, let's go something else then. I'll go to birds. Oh, because I have to come over to my master file. That's why I was in the right place for it. But now I'm over here. I'll go to birds and I'll go to raptors, eagles, and I'll look at my 490 golden eagles here. And they're not coming up. I'm not sure why.
Don't you have to go to
library on? That's why. My subfolders. Here we go. It's going to load the 490 pictures I've cataloged as being pictures of golden eagles, if it ever comes up. Sorry, wrong one. I have to click this button right here. Here it goes. The picture of the golden eagles here. And there's a whole bunch of golden eagle pictures I have. If I ever need to find them quickly, I can do it that way. So it's nice to find it with keywords. It's not the only way to catalog your pictures, but it's something I find useful if I need to quickly go through things to look for pictures. I'm just in the process of trying to sort through my pictures. As you might notice, I have in my images right now, 477,000 images. Some of those are from my iPhone. A lot have been sorted. I've thrown away close to 100,000 already, but I have a lot more to do. So it's going to take some time. Let me go back to the seminar folder here. And let's talk about a trip I took to, let me come over here and close the keywords. Come on, a trip to Botswana. Okay, come on. I think I can. I don't think this slowness is related to Lightroom 10. My system has been slow for a long time. I think having 500,000 pictures in here is one way it's just always been slow. Whoops. Oh, it's keywords. That was the problem. So here is just, you know, the 6,693 pictures I took in Botswana. They filtered down a little bit. Let's say I want to go back, or someone asked me, you know, when you went there, how did you shoot it? What camera did you use? What focal length, whatever. So I come over here and I'll make this keyword right up here. Again, this is text data, attribute, metadata, and none. So I'll pick metadata. I'll come over here and say, instead of keyword, I'll say camera. And I shot two different cameras. I shot a Canon 7D Mark II, which is a crop camera, and a Canon 1DX Mark II, full frame. And I shot almost equal number of pictures, and a few more on the crop camera by about a 4:3 ratio, but not a lot. And I did these different lenses, a 24-105, which is a sort of a wide angle to short telephoto. I did a 100 to 400 lens. I had a 2:4 with and without the extender. dropped in. The extender makes that lens a 280 to 560. It's a teleconverter that drops into the lens. And these are the various focal lengths I use during the whole trip, as you consider them. And that's focal length, not considering the crop feature. So if I go here and say, let me take my crop camera, and the lens will come up, reflect here in a minute. I didn't put the 24 to 105 on it. It made no sense because that's a crop camera. It made no sense to put a wide angle lens on it. I put that on the full frame camera. But I did it with the 1 to 4 and the 2 to 4. And it was either 1 to 4 about half the time, a little over half the time, or the 2 to 4 with the dropped-in converter about 25% of the time. If I looked at this time, this right here, the 2 to 4 and the dropped-in converter, you come down the focal lengths, I can see that a lot of the time, okay, almost 75% of the time, I was shooting at 560, the maximum focal length I had. So I found out just at this time, just going through these images, that you know what, you want to have the largest focal length, the longest focal length you can this trip. So if I were to ever go back, or someone asked me about going to Botswana and had a similar trip to the one I went on, I'd say, yeah, you want the longest lens you can get your hands on, because you're going to be shooting things that are fairly far away. This is a pied kingfisher on a little branch here, and you can see that, you know, if I could, with a little minnow there, if I could have gotten even closer, I would have liked it even more. Okay, so that just tells me a bit about what equipment I want to have. Now, something else that's interesting is like, where was I? How did I shoot? This is interesting both for nature, or if you're walking around a city and you say, hey, look, where was I? What did I shoot? Where did I get that great shot? Whether it's, let me move this back. This is Ecuador. Come on. Let me make this smaller. I was looking at some stuff earlier today where I was in Ecuador. Here is that Botswana trip right there. Let me move over here. There are 709 pictures geotagged. That's because I was only looking at that one camera, one lens combination. Let me go back to the library for a second and go back to my metadata and turn all that stuff off. Come on. Okay, let me turn that all off and go back to the library now, and we will see there's a larger number of pictures here. Come on. There we go. It's coming in there. So I shot in 2 locations. One near Victoria Falls, that was on the Chobe River, and that was 3,700 pictures. Another 2,500 pictures in basically Okavango Delta, near Moremi Game Reserve. If I go into any one of these things, let me come over here by the Chobe River, you can begin to see exactly where you were. This could be a really interesting thing to show your friends. Like, you know, hey, this is where I was, and look how we went along the river and when I shot there. And if I go up a bit more, and I'm hitting plus sign, you could also hit this plus arrow there and say, all right, what did I shoot where? Oh, let's see, there were 7 shots right here. And these are the 7 shots right down here that you see. Or I can come over here and say, there were 4 shots over here. That's an elephant. And I go through and say, yeah, these different pictures of elephants right there. Right along the river, comes along here, bending. So I begin to see where they were. Now, this is fine for nature, but imagine you were in a city and you saw a great door. And you said, I took a picture. Now you're back there 3 days later. You have geotagged your pictures, and now you go back and say, exactly where was I? What was the street where I saw that door? Where was that place that, you know, I took that fantastic church? Or you're back home and you have it inside of a church. You say, where was that? Which church was that? I don't remember every church I visited, but I love shooting the inside of churches. So I can look at the data and do it. Now, there's always a problem with geotagging. A couple things. One, not every camera has it. And 2, you got to be careful when you geotag. If you have a great picture and you geotag and put it on social media, that place will get overrun immediately. You really want to avoid geotagging things and putting images out there. I don't know how many horror stories I've heard about people geotagging something, whether it's a beach, whether it's site where they shot a cute animal, um, whether it's, you know, really interesting uh, rock formation or set of trees, and everyone sees it, and they just suddenly go there, and they basically, because of the herd, tremendous number of people that they're humming there, they basically destroy it. So be careful about geotagging. Now, the way I geotag is, one, I have attachments to my camera. I occasionally use that. But the other thing is, I have on my phone an app called GeoGea. G, G, let's see, let's see if I can get the spelling on this thing. Pardon me for a second. G-A-I-A GPS. Yeah, it means a Greek goddess. It's a Greek goddess name, goddess Mother Earth. And basically, when I go out, I turn that on, put it in my pocket, and it records where I've been all along. And during the day, it just recording all these points. When I get back home, back to the hotel or whatever, I turn it off and then download the GPS log to from my phone to my computer, load it into Photoshop. That is very simply come over here, track log right here. I say load a track log. And as long as the time on the computer, or I should say on my phone, and the time on the camera are basically in sync, you know, between the same time zone, etc. I'm able to transfer my GPS coordinates, which from my track log to my photos. And that's exactly what I did here. I didn't actually have a thing running here. I was able to transfer them that way. And it's really handy that way, so that you can share it with multiple people. One person in your party can create a GPS track log, and they can share it with everyone. It's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, the app that I have is called Geotag Photos.
Yeah, there's probably a dozen of them out there. Again, it's whichever one works for you. There's no right or wrong answer to it. It's like you define the thing that works, and you figure out how it works, and you stick with it. You know, it's not there's no right, wrong here. As I said at the beginning, this is some of the stuff is religion. You find the one that works for you. Even people with similar equipment will slightly choose other things here. So let's go on and look at a few other things here. Some HDR images. Okay, come back here. I put a series of HDR images here. The Mormon Barn and Grand Tetons. I selected 3 of these things. One way, if you just want to make it quick, HDR, you hit the Alt key and H, or you right click and say Photo Merge HDR. Again, the shortcut is Control H, so I'll do that. And I think I did it. There it goes. And it's beginning to create a HDR for me. I check align and auto settings. So they're basically going to handle all those things for me. And here we go. This deghosting means if the camera moves between points, it will find areas that have moved and flag them for you. So if I say a medium testing here, just deghosting amount, it'll look for it. And if there are some motions between these pictures, it'll flag them. Now this was shot on a tripod, so there shouldn't be too much motion, but there might be a little bit. And this is taking a bit of time, but we can let it run here. Building a preview. I think I can. And it's no ghosting there, so I hit none. And then I hit merge, and it will merge them into an HDR. It will not be a grunge HDR. It'll be pretty much a neutral rendering using HDR to create it. And it should come up here. You can see in this bar up here, you're showing the process by which it's creating it. It takes a little bit of time. I mean, this is a 10-year-old computer here, or maybe an 8-year-old computer. So there it is, right? See, which one is it? It's right here. It puts it on top in a stack. So there are 4, you see this 4 here? There are 4 images in the stack. If I right, whoops, what happened? Lightroom died. Okay, sorry about that. Let me kill this. Kill that. Fill my schedule. My notes I'm talking from. Close that up. Good chunk, good chunk, good chunk. I think I can. Go back to the HDR images. Aren't computers wonderful?
Love them.
Yeah. Anyhow, there we go. Here's my 4 images. I don't know what the exclamation point is. I'll just say cancel. So this is the HDR it created for me. Right there. By the way, for those who've been using Lightroom for a while, you may have noticed that there was a fit and here, and there was another setting here, fill, and then the size. Then there used to be a scale from either 5 to 1 or 1 to 13, or sorry, 1 to 11. The story was person who created the program, worked on the area of the program, was a big fan. This is Spinal Tap. And a scene in the movie is a guy wanted a really loud music. So he told who was ever designing his amplifier, says, I don't want to go 1 to 10. I want it to go to 1 to 11. So he made a dial go 1 to 11. So that's how we got his music louder. And so that's just the story there. They got rid of that now after all these years. But this is the HDR created. Let me click it and bring it up here. It's not a great HDR, but it's nevertheless the beginning of HDR. Going back here to the grid view.
Yeah, you probably got that metadata alert because the Lightroom.
Yeah, it crashed.
Yeah, that's why.
And if I want to take these and put them into a stack, I could collect all 4. I can go right click, stacking, group into stack, or Command G. Is it Command G or Control G?
Command G.
Yeah, I thought I did it.
Command G.
Come on. It's not doing it. Anyhow, let me just get rid of this thing right here. Ignore. So let me remove the photo. And I'll simply say, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Come on, get rid of it. Okay, anyhow, so the thing is, if you're doing this and there's a whole bunch of pictures you want to convert, they're kind of slow to do it this way. A quicker way is, I select the images I want. Now I do Shift Control H. That puts it in a batch mode. Do the same thing for the next group of images I want to convert. Let's delete that from the disk. So here's the next group I want to convert right here. Again, Shift Control H. And the last ones I want to convert, Shift Control H. And now notice the operations are being created up here. So, I didn't get that started correctly, so let's cancel that. So let's try it again. Shift Control H, and that'll batch it up there. So it's running my operations in the background in batch mode. So I can set a whole bunch of them up, go get dinner, start working on something else, so the computer gets kind of slow then, but it's going to automatically create these for me, HDRs in the background. So it's nice to be able to do that. And you could also do that. Let me come over here and get rid of this magnifying glass. I'd say photo merge. I said HDR, or sorry, panoramic. If I do the same thing, Shift Control M would batch them into panoramic mode. Now there is also a HDR panoramic mode. As far as I know, there's no way to hotkey that or batch it. So that you just have to live with. But notice when I put them together, I put them together in stack. So there's 4 images here. The top one right here is the DNG or the HDR merge file, HDR merge file, HDR merge file. So each time it's merging, putting together. So it just saves a bit of time doing this, okay? let's go back here. If I want to, I can go over here. I can say stacking, expand all stacks, and there they are, the individual images. They're still in stacks. They're just expanded, so we can look at them that way. Let's go back to my basic folder here, and let's start looking at something. Let's look at this. Let's look at this picture. This is a standard picture we've all seen. Unfortunately, what you're seeing is not what's on my screen, but you're seeing what Zoom presents. Okay, so I had no idea how good the colors are there. But if I want to know, can my system actually handle this? Are any of these colors in range of my monitor? There's actually a very simple way to do this. I come over here to View, and I have to go to Develop Module. I come over to View and say Soft Proofing. Turn that on. Soft Proofing is enabled. Now what I come back here is I go to View, Soft Proofing, and I say Monitor Gamut Warning. These are parts of this image that cannot be accurately displayed by my monitor. It tells you what can and cannot be seen in your color space of your monitor, so you can see how good is your monitor. Now that's my monitor we're talking about, not what you're seeing after Zoom has taken the image, probably compressed it somehow, and then put it back on your screen, which I have no idea how well calibrated that is. But that's a way of soft proofing. So if you want to see how things work, come back here to View, Soft Proof. Let me say Destination Gamut Warning, and turn off the monitor warning. Again, it's right here is where they're at, perceptual and relative intent. Basically, the difference is perceptual. If something's out of color space, it brings it into the color space, everything. So it's like shrinking that whole color space so everything fits in there. All colors are moved there. I don't know sure why we're getting that here. And then relative, what it does is it takes what's out of a color space, what cannot be visualized, and moves that directly into the color space without changing the rest. So if it's in the color space, it stays true. If it's outside, it comes in comes in so it can be seen. And this is a display P3, which is a wider color space. If I go to sRGB, we see there's many fewer colors that can be seen in sRGB. So that's why we often say when we do DPI competitions, we want to move stuff into sRGB. So it's a narrow color space, but it means that it'll be not distorted when it's presented. Let me turn off the soft proofing. The little button right here will do it for us. We're back to this color space right here. So it's good to see what your color space is and what you can see and not see. Let's come back here and look at how we develop a picture and some tricks here. Let me get to this. I've had some questions, and I've seen people, let me just bring this picture up here. And people said, all right, I'm moving it into Photoshop, and then we do things. So let's take this owl here, a flying great horned owl leaving a nest, caught mid-flight. And if I right-click it here, I say Edit in Photoshop, I come up with 3 options. I can say Edit the Original, Edit a Copy, which is basically the original with a different name, and Edit a Copy with Lightroom adjustments. So let me just edit the original for a moment. This should open it in Lightroom. Again, this is Lightroom, the latest one here coming up. And hopefully you can see that on the right-hand side, there's a whole bunch of layers I have in this picture. Okay, does everyone see that? Okay, you see that. That's important, is that you just see there's a bunch of layers there. Not what I did, bunch of layers. So don't stand here. And let me just close that and come back to Lightroom here. Now if I come over here and say, I click it and say, edit in Photoshop, if I say with Lightroom adjustments, it'll open it up right now in Photoshop. But instead of all those layers there, I just have one compressed layer. It's a background layer there. So it's basically flattening the image. I don't have my layers to work with. No, I don't want to save it. So come back to Lightroom here. Now let's say I'm looking at this image and say, you know what? Let me take the development module. Whoops, wrong one. Come back here. And I say, let's make this the black and white image. By the way, you may notice right here on this right side, I only have one of these boxes open at a time. Basically, the way you do it is right-click it and you say solo mode. And that will basically allow you to control one box at a time. If I turn that off, I can have multiple box of these dialogue or control boxes open at once. I'll stick with the solo mode for the moment. And right now I want to make this into a black and white. So I'll go basic, black and white. There we go. And maybe I'll add a bit of contrast to it. I'm just going to play with this for a very quickly time. Take the shadows down, maybe open the highlights a little bit. Not too much. I don't want to get this too blown out there. Take the whites down. Come over to the black and white slider here and say, all right, what happens when I change these sliders? Reds. You might notice right in this region right here. No, watch that. As I change this, you see how that gets brighter and darker? So there's some red there that's being impacted. Orange. There's a lot of orange in this picture. So maybe I'll open it up a little bit to get some color there. Yellows. Again, I like the yellows. Maybe I'll take it down just a little bit. No effect upon the greens. The aquas, not much color. If I double click, it goes back to 0. So there's some blue here. So maybe I'll take the blues down a little bit to add some contrast. Purples, not much purple there. And I don't think there's much magenta there. So now if I come over here and say, edit in Photoshop, and I edit the original, after I've adjusted the black and white in Photoshop, or in Lightroom, make it a black and white image, none of the Lightroom adjustments are made. They're all lost. So it doesn't work. Okay, so let me just get out of this one. Go back to Lightroom. And I say now, edit in Photoshop. I'll hit the copy Lightroom adjustments. And it shows up, but it's a flattened image. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have all the layers plus a black and white adjustment layer when you go from Lightroom to Photoshop. I know it's not Photoshop, but let me show you one fun thing in Photoshop. I think it's Control About. No. Nope. Nope. I gotta find the right one here.
What are you trying to do?
Test it out. There we go.
Ah,
If you hit the command and about, it gives you the secret picture I used for a code name. It's 7pi. Where this came from, I don't know, but this has been true for in Photoshop for as long as I've been using it. These little shortcut here to see things. You just click it again, it's gone. And I'm doing Command W to close this, get out of there, minimize it, and we're now back in Lightroom. So let me go back to an image. Let me come back to this image right here. Okay, this is the great horned owl in a snowstorm sitting on a stump. And this is the original image, I believe. It really hasn't been processed at all. You can see that I got this this year on February 8th, the Canadian Raptor Conservancy. A great trip I've done with Steve and Nicole. I know Nicole's on. I presume Steve's on too. Though I don't see them on this thing, but they may well be here. I come here, I want to start processing it. So a lot of people feel that if you have a white part of the image, it should be pure white. If you have a black part of the image, it should be pure black. The way you do that is you hold your shift key down and hit the word white. And that means something in that image which is white is being shown. To test that, you hit the Alt key down, hit the slider, slide this back and forth, You see, I'm just beginning to get a little bit of area right in here that is white, that's showing up as white. I can do the same thing with blacks. I hold the shift key down, put the word black. If I want to see where that is, I hit the Alt or the Option key and hit the slider, and you begin to see where that is right here. So you're now beginning to set your points. You can say, do I like this or not? Well, you know what? Maybe I don't want to make it quite as dark. I can make a little bit of change here. Maybe I'll not make it quite as bright, because there really isn't a lot of true white here, not a true black, so I could change those. As I'm processing that, I could do things like holding the Alt key down, hitting the highlights and seeing. So I hit the slider, what's getting blown out, what's not. So I begin to see, what am I affecting, what am I changing here? I don't want to spend a long time on processing the sliders, because we all know how they sort of work, at least the basic ones. So I might do some things here. One thing I'd like to do is, like, this green right here. Let me come over here and hit HSL, which puts it in this format of layers where I have hue, saturation, and luminosity. I come over here, and there's green here. If I want to make that green brighter, we can. If I come over here to the saturation, hit the green. You see, I'm beginning how it much looks different. If I hit the backslash, that's what it was. This is what it is now. So backslash lets you see before and after. That's way too much, obviously, for this one. So I will come over here. I'll just double click it and move it there. If I want to perhaps turn the colors down, I can do that. Sort of make the background recede and less of a color back there. Let me go to another picture here. This was shot in South Africa, not far from Kruger, one of my favorite camps of all time. It's a camp called Londolosi. This is a place where they worked very hard to get the leopards to be habituated to cars. Normally, when you see a leopard, leopards 100 yards away, walking away from you. These leopards are known to walk right next to the vehicle. And this was a sunset shot. Unfortunately, the light on the leopard was not from the sun. Rather, it was from a spotlight from another vehicle. So I want to make this leopard a little bit warmer. I want to make the tones warmer here. So they have a really nice feature in in the latest version of Lightroom called color grading. And there are 3 circles here: midtones, shadows, and highlights. You have them lined up as 3 here. You could do one at a time. So let me do the midtones first. I'll hit the click there. Let me just reset them all here. I'll just set them all to initial highlight. So I'll now come here and say, I want to make this leopard warmer. So I'll just take this little slider here. I obviously go make it grossly warmer. I can make it even very, like, almost nighttime, moonlit. But I'll just come over here and make a little bit of yellow, orange, just about like that. And I can change the intensity a little bit less or more here. I can then go to the dark areas, the shadow areas, and maybe I want to make them a little bit more blue, because it is like, maybe it's more of a overcast, or not overcast, but in the shadows, darker blue light. Then I'll come with highlights and again make those a bit brighter. Again, this is what I have. This is what I have now. Okay, that's now. That's original. So you can sort of see how it's making it a little bit more of a sunset picture here. Okay, so that's a sunset picture where I've been working with the colors. Hit the backslash. That's original. Not night and day, but I think it does help a lot to get the color feeling I want out of this picture. That I'm trying to make an image of a leopard lying in a tree, and it was sunset, and have it more of a sunset tone without being garish. Okay, it's a picture I've been trying to process for a long time, and this really does help me get the colors I want.
So Rich, you drag that circle on the outside of the,
I could change the color by dragging the outside, or I get the area, and then I could just come here and move it back and forth the amount I want of intensity of color. And that also does the color, the brightness of that color area. It's not to be, I want to do this as a global adjustment. So those are better with the color sliders for temperature. But I simply go to this area, and this is my midtone. It's a midtone, they want to call it a tint. It's color grading. It's something that's going to take me a long time to figure out how to make it look good. Because it's that eye for color where you begin to say, this is what I want it to look like. It's a difficult problem. I find it very difficult to get colors to look good. So this is something that I think I will be working with a long time, trying to help. So here's the midtone. And I can simply just more or less and decide, that's too much in my mind. That it's just in the background, especially in this region right here, looks way too much. So I want to back off a little bit. And I might even take the brights and try to make them just maybe just a little bit opposite. Drag that over here. So the bright areas don't get too nuclear. So we have a good tint, you know, warmth to the leopard. Obviously I don't want to go green. You know, it's subtle, so you got to be very careful moving this thing. But I want to get the leopard to be nice and warm without overdoing the sky. So we move on to someone else who wants to come in here. Let me admit them. Let me come up with this image here. This is probably an HDR. I'm not sure where the origin this was as a TIFF file. I might have worked in another program to do that. But anyhow, I'll come here, and one thing, let's see, is there a chat question? Yes, 2 questions in chat. Not seeing your screen. Okay, you found your problem, good. Let me come over here to this image and come through to this right here. And say, you know what? I like this image, but I really want to make that tree pop a little bit. So I'll take this brush right here, and I'll start painting. Let me make this image a little bigger. So maybe I'll make it not 100%, but maybe I'll come over here to, that's pretty good. Hold the shift key down, move it down, and I'll start painting in this color here. So I'm painting that tree. If you want to see what I painted, I'll click the show selected. You can sort of see the area I painted in the tree. So we're basically painting this area right here. I might want to come over here and say, make my brush a lot smaller and paint it over here to get that there. And now I'll come over here and say, let me do a bit, turn the mask off and increase the saturation a little bit by doing the slider. I can make this darker or lighter by selectively doing it. So those of us who are familiar with Photoshop and doing masks and curves and adjustments like that, this is just the way of doing that in Lightroom. There's also something here that allows me to change the color. So if I slide this, I can almost make it into an oak, like a flaming red oak here. Change the color a bit there. May or may not look good to your eye, but you have the option of changing the color here. Maybe that looks a bit better. Obviously, I don't want to take it too far. I don't want to have a purple tree or a blue tree, but green leaves. But I could come over here and begin to do this. I can click this button right here, which fine adjustment, click that, then pick this, and as I'm moving it, it's not moving as fast, moving a lot slower. So I begin to make the adjustments to get the colors I want. This area here. If I'm done, I simply say close. I'm going to close that adjustment area. Come back here. I'll say fit, and there it is. Now, if I look at this, there's something that really bugs me about this picture. By the way, I would also have to adjust the shadow here because I got the leaves, one color, the shadow, another. That ain't right. You know, you got to have the colors match. I'm not going to worry about that now, but one would have to. Something, though, that bugs me about this is that this picture is tilted. The horizon's a little bit crooked, and worse, the shadows are not right below things. Let me go to 100% here, and you're going to sort of see this is not vertical. If you have a shadow, it has to be a reflection has to be right below the image itself. So let me go back, fit this on the screen. I'm going to go to the crop tool, and you can let me come back to 100% here if I can. No, it's not going to work. Okay, so I just have to very slowly, at the bottom here, you may notice that there's a little arrow at the bottom. It's like a left-right arrow, almost circular. So as I turn that, you can see right here that this post and its reflections is now vertical. One is right above the other. That's a dead giveaway that if they're not right, one's right above the other, that it's really not a proper reflection. So I'm done with that. I can simply say close, and there we go. And that's the image. They're improved. Let me turn the zoom off. Okay. And if I wanted to, this guy here, I could either try to remove him. I find that doing cloning in Lightroom is difficult, but not impossible if you're lucky. Or you can change the jacket to make it stand out. But it's a red jacket, so that's probably a good thing. Most of us want to have a spot of red in our picture, so. If I'm through with this image, I want to begin to finish it. I might come over here to effects and say, let me do some vignetting. If I vignette one way, it puts a white border on it. The other way, it's a black border. Both of those are way too strong here. But let me go to about here. I can make the roundness greater or smaller. I can do the midpoint, expand it a bit. I could make it more feathered, less feathered. So I probably will make the amount a little bit less. And highlights doesn't seem to ever do much for me. So there's a small vignette there. Vignetting a picture often will help people focus more in the center of it. And there we go with that. There is a lens correction. This should be checked all the time. This image was shot at ISO 200, so it won't be much chromatic aberration, much noise at least. It might be chromatic aberration from the lens, so it's probably a good lens here. The profile should be enabled. It's a Canon camera, I know that. I shot it. And it was a 7200 f2.8, which is a very good lens, so the amount of chromatic aberration should be very close to zero, so I probably don't have to worry about correcting that. There. Any questions so far?
Actually, I have a couple questions. One is the batch processing that you showed. Where is that in the menus? Like, where can I looked in the menus and I didn't see where to do.
I don't know where it is in menu. I just know to do it. Let me come up here.
No idea.
I just know. Okay, here we are. I just know it. Click your one, and I have to know Shift Command H. I found this out someplace.
Shift Command E as in Edgar?
Shift Control H does the HDR processing. And you do the same thing. I think it's M for panoramic. So if it's edit, photo merge, yeah, H for HDR, M for panoramic, it's Shift Control, either H or M.
Oh, so Shift Command H will give you the HDR.
Shift Control H will do it in batch mode. Control H will do it one at a time.
Got it.
I don't know where it's like all these things that a lot of the stuff you got to just dig through, listen to seminars. There's so much stuff here, you know, you can only scratch the beginning.
Yeah, I never saw that in any menu that I looked at. So
It's
that's
one
a
of these
really cool
things that
tip.
you stumble on,
Yeah,
you know.
not having to schlep to the menu all the time get those
Well, there
commands.
is a place where you can get the shortcuts. And if you get those and just sort of scan through those, you might find some things interesting there. Like I've never seen the shortcut that in Photoshop that says Shift Option Command E gets you, you know, a new layer or merge layer up above. You know, I just stumbled on that. I don't know where it's written.
Right, in Photoshop Edit at the bottom of the menu, there's keyboard shortcuts. If you bring that up, right then
Right.
there you can see where all the shortcuts are, and then you can change them to your liking.
Yeah, yeah. So if we have something like this image, I want to take them. Let me come over here. We haven't talked about the file export yet, and I don't want to go too much into exporting, but I could come over here and say Aurora HDR. I have to say export, and this will then take those images into Aurora. It'll, come on, file, export, edit. Oh, here, let's try this. Edit with a copy of Lightroom adjustments. And now it should be starting. It's saying uploading 3 files to Aurora HDR. And that's another way to run it.
Yeah, the way I usually do it is the right click, and then you get the contextual menu, and there's all your export choices.
Yeah.
There, that's another way.
Yeah. Yeah. So here is Aurora. I don't want to get into talking about Aurora Luminar. So I'll say create the HDR. That's another way of doing HDRs and interfacing to different programs. Ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. I think I can. I think I can. I only got 128 gigs of RAM on this thing. Here we go. So I click the button here, move the slider a little bit more or less the way I want it. I'll say apply, and we'll bring this back into Lightroom and show some editing opportunities here. Again, I'm not trying to show the right way to do it. I'm showing opportunities of what you can do here. Okay, this is what I just created in Aurora HDR. Let me double click it. You can see the title there, Aurora. Hit develop. And now, for example, let me just pick a selection, a circle or an oval, and come over here. And I can move this over here, bring it in, maybe make it a bit wider. With the center point here. Now let me say I want to do something like increase the contrast a little bit. I want to work in the barn. I can, whoops. I can invert it so it's working the center. So we can show where the mask is. So you can see when I click this show selected areas, it shows where it is. If I decrease, increase the contrast here, I can then do things like move in the white points and have the effect there. I can add some texture to it. That makes it stand out pretty nice. Bit of clarity. Increase the sharpness there. And we're good with that one, so let's say okay. Now, you know what? I like those trees in the background, but I really want to make them sing a bit more. So I'll come over here to HSL. I'll hit this selection tool here, go to the trees, and I'll just go sliding up and down. You see how the trees are getting brighter? So if I hit the backslash, that's where we were. See how I added some golden colors to those trees? And if I want to make it more saturated, I come over here, do the same thing. I can take the yellow, more or less saturation of the yellow and oranges there. Again, the backslash shows me before and after. And really helpful to always check before and after, because as you work on a picture, you begin to fall in love with all your changes, and you do change after change, and you get way too much. So there's the trees being highlighted a bit. Come back to the basics. Maybe I'll select this, and let me turn this on now, the mask, and I'll show, just select the roof and see what I can do here with different tools to make the roof pop a little bit. So maybe I'll make the roof, and turn this off, by the way, before we do any more work. So see what we're doing, not just the red. So that's way too much. And I can maybe make the roof a bit brighter if we want to. Increase the contrast. Add a shadow so it's a little more detailed in it. Increase the texture perhaps. And go on with it. So I can affect different areas different ways. And there's really very little limit to what you can do. You sort of decide what you want to do and how you want to do it, and keep on working on it. I was at a webinar and demonstration by a guy named Jeff Swaby, I think you pronounce it, and he ended up having like 20 or 30 adjustment points on each image. You know, it's just seeing what you want. Come over here, I'll say this is okay. Maybe I'll take this brush right here. I'll say I want to take this area, these areas right here in the barn, and just, I want to take those and I want to open up the shadows just a little bit. So there's like light falling on them. And you could do those very easily, bring them forward. Again, what is your vision? The tools are here. It just takes a while to learn them and work with them. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And we've got questions.
Okay, we got just a couple more minutes. Anybody have
I don't know how much time you want to spend, so.
I will reclaim the host. I can unmute. I have unmuted everyone. I know that's a dangerous thing to do, but you can either put it in the chat or you can just ask. No? No one?
Oh, I was away for a minute.
Hope I didn't put anyone to sleep.
I could add, we were just talking, I did a quick Google search on it because I was curious myself, because I just knew the shortcut like Rich did. If you're doing batch processing for the images, whether the panorama or HDR, it says if you have them in stack mode, just select the stacks and select the same thing and it'll automatically do the stacks.
Yeah.
But they have to be in stack mode first.
Yeah.
Then you go under processing stacks, look under stacks, and one of the choices will be to do panoramas or HDR.
One of the things I learned that I thought was really cool was the monitor profiling. That I had no idea how to do it. And in these days of Zoom showing your pictures online, you know, that is just something that's could be really good to make sure everybody's seeing what you're seeing. So
You never know what people are saying because it's, you know, their own computer monitor, you don't know how it's calibrated.
Right, right.
By the way, I just did something, went to Lightroom, I hit help, and the bottom of the help menu is shortcuts. So there's one for the default module. There's, if you do the same thing, there's another one for the library. So these are just the shortcuts available in the module. So you begin to see where things are.
Any other questions? All right. If there are no other questions, Rich, thank you so much. This was very, very educational. I know I learned a lot of stuff, and I appreciate you know, the work you did to put it together. I know everyone else did. We'll have the video in a couple days up on our homepage.